supper and a mother at the best place around. Some stupid with a flare gun burned the place to the ground. Smoke on the water, fire in the sky. Smoke on the water. Burned down the gambling house. It died with an awful sound. Funky and Claude was running in and out, pulling kids out of the ground. But when it all was over, we had to find another place. Swiss time was running out. It seemed that we would lose the race. Smoke on the water, fire in the sky. Smoke on the water.
You wanna know what goes on backstage? Oh, come on. Let me take you by the hand. Ow!
Rudi, are you ready?
Ladies and gentlemen,
The way I see it, Barry, this should be a very dynamite show.
You know, I have no idea what the name of this program is, but you're watching it.
Backstage,
All you ever want,
backstage,
all you ever need.
backstage.
Your dreams will be fulfilled once you are there. You'll never wanna leave. You wanna sell your ass for that backstage pass. Backstage is just for the invited. Backstage, they've laid on every.
Hello, here is another episode of my weekly streaming Rudi Backstage International. Wherever you see that, if it's on Rudi Dolezal's Doro TV on YouTube, or you also can see it on Instagram, on Facebook, TikTok, and Twitter. Today, I want to talk about Michael Jackson. There is no real reason. It's just that, I haven't been talking about him in quite a while. And I think it's time to talk about him again. I mean, people who follow my career know that I was privileged to work with him on a few projects. One was the Dangerous Tour, the live broadcast. It was called World Premiere Live, from Munich, Germany, all around the world. It was a very, very big, I think it was, 40, 50, 60 countries. It was an interesting concept because until this point, there was always the opinion for television people and for promoters that you shouldn't broadcast a concert of an artist at the beginning of a tour, of a new tour, because then people watch it on television and they don't go and buy tickets. And we basically, if I say we, there was a bunch of people, organizing this, an American production company, Marcel Avram in Munich, who was, basically the European manager of Michael Jackson. There was a concept developed, which I was part of, that while you have the first show of an artist like Michael Jackson, you simultaneously have a television show around the world. That was why it was called World Premiere Live. But you don't show only the concert, you just show certain songs of the concert. If I remember correctly, it was 3 or 4 songs. Beginning, somewhere in the middle, da-da-da, and end. And in between, you show pre-produced documentary parts, like the rehearsals in Los Angeles, and where the tour is gonna go to, like with a map, when he's playing where, things like that, and that was quite interesting and pretty successful. I also did it later one more time with the Rolling Stones out of Stockholm. Then, unfortunately, the American production company went bankrupt. And because they were involved in the concept, this, was unfortunately the end of it. But those two shows were great, and Michael Jackson in particular. Now, Michael was a very special person. In my opinion, one of the best producers. He was a great singer. He was one of the best dancers on stage and everywhere. He was very creative. He wrote great songs. There's no doubt about it. On stage, he was, at that time, he was an event. Yeah. And so when we were producing and editing in Munich the documentary parts, he came into the editing suite to check them and approve them. And in one situation, I saw, how money was not at all an issue, because I was doing an opening, and then he said to his manager, I think the name of the manager was Sandy Gallin. He said, there is one shot missing that I like so much, that the so-and-so and da-da-da, one scene of 4 seconds. And then there were phone calls and this and that. And then, so finally they decided, it was 2 days before the broadcast and the show, that they will send those 4 or 5 seconds via satellite from Los Angeles to Munich, Germany. Now, for people who are not into the technical part, if you're sending film material by satellite, it's a big technical thing. And at the time, it was very expensive. So probably sending those few seconds or this one scene was at least, half, if not all of what the whole production was costing, and doubled it just by that. I remember that when then later there were talks that Michael was bankrupt. And everybody says, well, how can that be? Well, if you're spending money like that, this can be. And so then, at another incident, there was a classical song at the beginning of the shows, which I took for the beginning of the television program, live program, called Carmina Burana by a composer called Karl Orff. And very last moment, like a day before or the day of the show, suddenly from the Michael Jackson management came the bad news. We can't use that song. They couldn't agree with the Karl Orff people, the foundation. We have to use another song. But I mean, I was doing like a week of editing just for the opening. Every cut was like, Rudi style, ba, ba, ba. So we did take another song, and finally we're just finished, and this is no joke, with police, ta-ta, 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 making our way into the stadium. At the time it was beta or digibeta cassettes. And for about minutes before the broadcast went on, we put this new opening into the machine, which very soon later went on air. And I was the live director of the concert. Can you imagine? Thank you, Michael Jackson. To all the incidents with the little boys, etc., I said a lot. There is not a lot to say. It's a very sad thing. On the other hand, what I want to say is that I interviewed quite a lot of people from the family, and amongst them, the father of Michael. Because I was always, when we had production meetings for projects, because there was also once I remember a commercial for he did once a energy drink, and then there was also a project with his sister, Toya Jackson. I did a video, and others. Whenever we met Michael, it was on days when he had shows or public things, and that was always a little bit, little time. And when we said, why can't we do it on a day off? Then they were whispering, well, he doesn't have a nose. I said, what? No, one day off, he doesn't have a nose. So at the time, through all those operations, the nose was already based on something plastic, or I don't know, or whatever. And it took hours of makeup, etc. So I thought, what a poor person. And I always thought, why did he do that? He was such an icon, also of the African American music world. And one thing I think explained it, when Michael once said to me that he looked into the mirror and looked more and more like his father. Now, that's something that happens to me too. I was opposing my dad when I was 13, 14, 15, because we were fighting about long hair or, rock and roll music or what have you. But when I then later interviewed his father, Joe Jackson, for a different project, he said he was proud that he had Michael dance on a stove without any shoes, which must have hurt, so that he becomes quicker. And so that's probably Michael's explanation that he didn't want to look like his father. It's sad that such a great talent, musical talent, dancing talent, performer talent, filmmaking talent, what have you, went so early. But it also shows you that fame and money and all those things are not a guarantee of a happy life. I don't think Michael Jackson was happy. Who am I to say? But what I sort of experienced. Hi, Rudi. That's how he dressed. I mean, there is this story that we all had to sign a contract to look at the other direction when Michael enters the room. So I did sign a lot of crazy stuff in my life, but that was probably the craziest, because he didn't want to have all the looks on him. Wow, something like that. And so Michael had, at the time, he was called the King of Pop. At the time, I thought it's a little bit pretentious. Now, in retrospect, okay, he's the King of Pop. Why not? The video with Toya Jackson was also interesting. There's quite interesting documentary footage. She was the one who always did the same plastic surgery, I had the feeling, as Michael, because she always looked in the different stages very close to how Michael looked. It was still very interesting work. Michael is one of the people who, I mean, especially when I then also worked with Quincy Jones, who produced most of the Michael Jackson big hits. He told me also things about Michael. You know, when we did Montreux, when I did the documentary with about Miles Davis, which also was awarded at the Grammys. Quincy Jones was executive producer and presented it. and we were often sitting at Claude Knobs, who was the boss of and the organizer of the Montreux Jazz Festival, and then privately, and he was talking about several bizarre things that I will not tell you because I'm not like the Sun newspaper. But one thing I want to say, what is very interesting, most of you know the famous prostitute interview that I did with Freddie in Munich. And in that interview, he said I don't know if it was the first time, but he talked quite a lot about the then not finished recordings that he did with Michael Jackson. Peter Freestone also talks about this in his so-called talk show when he's on stage. And there is a photograph. But Freddie talked in this interview, that the two were, were doing something together. State of Shock, actually, the song which then was released first by Michael Jackson with Mick Jagger, was before that, as far as I remember, recorded by Freddie Mercury and Michael Jackson. But Michael wanted to put it out, and they couldn't agree on timetables, so it was released with Mick Jagger instead of Freddie Mercury. But they did, I think they did 2 songs or something. So there is also a connection between Freddie Mercury and Michael Jackson. I wonder what Freddie would say to all those things that were discussed or came out or about Michael Jackson and the Boys. I mean, it's also really, the This Is It documentary, where they only had in the end the rehearsals because the shows never happened. I would have loved to see him on stage then, and even if it would have really been the end and This Is It, but just the rehearsals, I think it's not enough for what could have been if the master was still around. But as I said, there's much more to talk about Michael Jackson. I also interviewed his brothers, older brothers. I remember in Montreux, and that was also very interesting. How they spoke when they were really young. I mean, Michael Jackson never had a childhood, So in the beginning, I always thought that, well, most of what he's doing with this park and inviting so many children was because he wanted to relive or relive for the first time a childhood experience. It's sad that there is very strong evidence that there was more. Anyway, I hope you liked it. This was Rudi Backstage International. Today, Michael Jackson and a little bit of Freddie Mercury. I hope you like it. I hope, please stay safe. I have a t-shirt on which is from Ringo Starr and says, "Peace more than ever." Artists and thinking and people, anybody has to do whatever they can for peace. I mean Ukraine, and I mean the war started by the Russian Federation. It's very sad. Be safe. Corona is not over yet. Be human. If you can, help the Ukrainian people with money or whatever you can do. And as I say at the end, always, what is the most important thing in life? Love and respect.
You wanna know what goes on backstage? Oh, come on. Let me take you by the hand. Ow!
Rudi, are you ready?
Ladies and gentlemen.
The way I see it, Barry, this should be a very dynamite show.
You know, I have no idea what the name of this program is, but you're watching it.
Backstage. All you ever want. Backstage. All you ever need. Backstage. Your dreams will be fulfilled once you are there. You'll never want to leave. You'll want to sell your ass for that backstage pass. Backstage is just for the invited. Backstage.